just so thrilled that we are here, that people are continuing on understanding that this is an issue which is going to run all the way through to the election and beyond. And there was something that Amy said when she was on my panel, which was that she said pay equity is not about money. And I think that's a really important thing to remember, that when we have, like, I remember, who was that Wally who used to be our Prime Minister? John Key, in 2018, and he said, oh, equity and equality are great things, but we just can't afford it, as if that would make it acceptable. And I mean, discrimination and misogyny against women has been, you know, a tradition in New Zealand for a very, very long time. I mean, I was just telling my students today that, because I don't teach HR, I only teach ER, I was telling my students when the minimum wage came into this country, women's minimum wage was around 70% of men's minimum wage. And that was seen as acceptable because women's work is not valued as much. And I suppose my academic research began by looking at a group of PSA members, actually, in the health sector, clinical coders, which many people have never heard of. They're a very small group of clerical workers. And they were very upset about how they were valued and how they were paid, and had, you know, grounds for quite a grievance. But what I was looking at really was how do we create the notion of skill, and how do we value skill, and whose value do we take the word of? And when we think about women, the sorts of things that women, you know, stereotypically are good at are caring. And you don't have to go and get a university degree to care. So it's not real. And so we don't have to pay it because you'll do it anyway. And if you have to acquire something, there is something in that very sort of economic notion of transactional acquisition that suddenly denotes value. So if we have to go and get a skill by becoming a civil engineer, by coming and learning about it, that makes us a very valuable and important person, because you wouldn't have had it otherwise. So this idea of skill, which is how then we go on to value different jobs and pay different jobs, and then we see, you know, which gender dominates those jobs, is very, very entrenched in our thinking. And it goes back so far, you just don't even know where it began. I mean, the subjugation of women has been ever since there were women, basically. The idea that we are lesser and inferior and therefore, you know, don't deserve is long-standing. It comes through in many religious beliefs. It comes through in most cultural norms, and it plays out in our politics. So we are up against a huge fight.